Two.
There you go.
With this change.
Meeting is recorded in all mediums. Calling the meeting to order at 6:16. So we'll go ahead and start with roll call. For the purpose of the recording, may I please get an audible roll call from the Personnel Board, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Present.
Member Front,
Present.
Chair Wizik,
Present.
Member Worthy. Thank you. Next, we have agenda review. Any change of items on the agenda review? No? Okay. Statement of conflict of interest? Any conflict of interest on any of that? No. Okay. Then we're moving on to approval of minutes for the October 27th, 2022 minutes. Is someone motion for approval?
I, Vice Chair Renetta Buckner, move that the minutes be accepted.
Can I get a second?
Chair Warsick seconds.
And then we'll vote, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Board Member Front,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy. Okay. For public comment, I do have a public comment from Cordell Hindler. Hello, Chair Wizik, board members and staff. I am forwarding the following items to be placed on the September 28th agenda. 1, approve the revision retitle of Community of Economic Development Operations to Economic Development Specialist 1/2. 2, approve revision to job description for Economic Development Administrator. The reason for bringing these items forward is that I had spoken with former city manager Bill Lindsay prior to his retirement, and he was in support of adding these positions to assist in the Community and Economic Development Division. Sincerely, Cordell. Okay, moving on, there is no consent agenda. So moving to new business. Item A, discuss nomination of and elect personnel board chair and vice chair. This is usually done annually, the first meeting of the year. So are there any nominations, self-nominations?
I, Vice Chair Renetta Buckner, nominate Larry Worsling
Or chair?
for chair.
Okay, so we'll vote. Chair Wizik for chair. Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Member Front,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
and Board Member Worthy. Okay, and do we have nomination for vice chair? Okay. Is there a second?
Chair Warsick seconds.
Okay, voting. Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Board Member Front,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to item B, 7B. Approve the establishment of a paralegal classification. And I believe we have Catherine from Human Resources that will present.
Good evening, Chair Warsake and members of the board. Tonight, we are asking you to establish a new job classification, which is for a paralegal. The paralegal would provide legal research, assist with drafting legal documents, and provide legal support to our city attorneys in our city attorney's office. The position would be represented by SEIU general employees. And we met and conferred and provided notice to the union to meet and confer, and they're in agreement with developing the job spec. So we're asking you to approve the establishment of the classification as presented. It's a brand new position, but we would need to establish the class before the department can ask for the position to be inputted into position control. So that would be a second step that the department would work with finance and the city council on with the budget.
My question is that the paralegal will have to come established with understanding of laws and terminology and so forth. It's not someone we're just promoting into a position. Is that correct?
Correct. It would have to have a paralegal, completion of a paralegal certification program or equivalent, which is 60 units of law-related college courses.
Do you want a motion or still discuss? Does anyone motion to approve?
I motion to approve. I'll second.
Voting, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Board Member Front,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy. Okay, great. Moving on to item 7C, approve revision to job specification for payroll manager. We have Catherine Selkirk from Human Resources also presenting.
So this item regarding the revisions to the job specification for payroll manager. This is an existing classification already. It's been vacant for some time. It is fully budgeted. We've had a very difficult time recruiting for this position. And part of that, we believe, may be due to the fact that it requires a bachelor's degree. In addition to the bachelor's degree, it requires 5 years of payroll experience. As part of the city's class and comp study, which we've been engaged in since 2020, the vendor that we contracted with who developed the new specs that'll be coming forth through that process has put any combination language into the spec to allow for greater flexibility in filling city positions. And so this item would advance that any combination experience into the classification now, as opposed to waiting for it through the class and comp study. We spoke with the union about this and they're in agreement with the change.
Verification is still be a mix, so the bachelor's degree is no longer required.
Correct. It won't be a minimum requirement. So if you have other type of experience or other type of education or training that's relevant, that could be considered instead of a bachelor's degree.
How long has the position been vacant?
I believe over a year.
And the candidates that you guys were interviewing, did they just not have a bachelor's degree, or you didn't like the pool of candidates?
The candidates that were able to move forward and participate in the process had to have a bachelor's degree because that's the current requirement. And there's been very few qualified applicants that have met that criteria that have been able to move forward in the process. And those that have fallen out for various reasons.
What's the salary range for the position?
I believe it's currently up to about 9,000 a month or thereabouts. It was increased last year before we conducted the recruitment. And it will be seeing a further adjustment potentially through the class and comp study.
So it's over 100,000 annually,
Correct,
and you still weren't able to find a candidate?
correct.
Can you explain to me your recruitment and how that went?
The recruitment actually went really well. And like I said, we did make offers, but both turned down in the end. So for a variety of reasons, some were offered probably more money where they were at. We can only speculate. Some telecommute. So we can only speculate why. We were in pretty much negotiation for it. And we were offering, I think this last round, near top of range.
And so why would the qualifications lessen instead of the pay for the position increase?
Part of the Siegel class and comp study, it was determined by city leadership that they wanted to include equivalent combination experience in all of the city specs so that they could attract a more diverse pool of candidates who may not have that traditional bachelor's degree or certain educational requirements. So that's something that's going to be coming forth in all of the revised job specifications. And so this item is just moving that combination experience forward now.
Well, I just want to say with all the initiatives in Richmond, with the young people going to college, or like the Richmond Promise, that this doesn't quite make much sense. So I would like to just go ahead and put my vote as a no.
I kind of agree. I don't want to see the city lessens their standards to accommodate a particular group. And I don't know if we have sufficient studies, since it's only been a year, to make this decision. I think that we need to review it maybe next year, but I think that we should stay with the bachelor's program at the minimal and encourage that and see where it goes from there. Those are my takeaways on that as well.
And do great.
Just food for thought. I've run many a payroll myself. I do have a degree. Some of the payroll supervisors and managers I've dealt with in the past don't have the degree. They are certified payroll professionals. So they have certification, a specialty in payroll. So it does depend on the organization on what they want as their requirements.
You're absolutely right. At a time, those certificates were the only requirement. At this new day and age, when we're encouraging young people to go to school, to take on different types of positions, it would just behoove us not to have a requirement across the board of the minimal qualifications, being that they have a bachelor's degree.
It is the board's choice.
Yes.
I think, excuse me, I just want to say, I tend to agree with what the city's saying here, that I think opening this up to a more diverse pool that may not have obtained a bachelor degree, maybe for financial reasons, or we don't know why, but if they have the experience that's necessary to do the job, I don't see why a piece of paper with a bachelor's degree is something that's so important necessarily. While that can be a short track to maybe finding qualified candidates, if we're having trouble recruiting qualified candidates that are suited for this role, then it might be, I tend to agree that it's good to not necessarily require a bachelor's degree. It still could be a good thing. It's still listed here on the education and experience. But if the city finds the right person that doesn't have a bachelor's degree, that they could still have the option of hiring them.
What are the numbers, the positions that the city currently has that does not require a college degree in this building?
We would have to research that and get back to you.
We look forward to that information.
Chair Worsig, if I may. Uh,
Hi.
Hi, this is Pam Lee. Welcome, board member Front to the Personnel Board, and I look forward to working with you and the rest of the commission or the board on personnel matters. As board member Front did point out, the bachelor's degree still remains as part of the education and experience as the minimum qualifications, but the addition of the combination of experience does, as we've stated, widen the pool of applicants. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will necessarily be interviewed, because once we do compare all of the pool of applicants that do submit their paperwork, to the extent that we, the city determines that any combination of experience would qualify them to move to the next step, then they would proceed with the interview. And so obviously for those that do have a bachelor's degree, they would still be weighted, with that degree of that is appropriate for this position. But let's say we have a certified payroll specialist that's been experienced for 20 years and has handled payroll for this level of this number of employees at a different public agency or organization. I think that would weigh in just as equally important as the bachelor's degree, in addition to the 5+ years of experience. And so I think the ability for the city to do that, I think, is greatly beneficial for the organization. With my experience with working with payroll, I do see that it is an important function. And so having the vacancy for this long, I don't know how it's impacted the, ability for payroll to get processed and see if there's any mistakes that have been made that have to be corrected. It does cost the city time and resources. And so I don't know if we wait to see where we land in terms of the next pool of candidates without any change in the minimum qualifications. I'm not sure how that would affect the ability for HR and payroll to provide the level of service. So I'm not sure if HR could speak to that as part of why we're bringing this forward for your recommendation. So that's just another consideration to think about.
So I have a few questions. How many personnel will this payroll manager be over? How many people are in the payroll system currently?
Currently, there's just 2 payroll coordinators.
How many staff, how many personnel
That they,
receive a paycheck?
it is, the last count was, I think, 606. That's full-time and part-time.
So is there anybody above the payroll manager?
Yes, there's an accounting manager, and I also help with payroll.
And so how long did the last person occupy the position?
I believe about 1 year,
So you had someone for a year, then it's been a year vacancy?
just about, yeah.
So how long was the person before that? Just a year?
The position, I believe, had been vacant a couple years in between, because it was hard to recruit then as well.
And then who's doing this job now? Is it a combination of folks, the 2 folks underneath that position?
We have the 2 payroll coordinators, and I oversee whenever, just before the checks are issued. And we have the accounting manager also.
Question. Would it make sense to elevate somebody that's already there into that position and then backfill to that, from that vacated position. Is there any sense to moving somebody that's already there up and then backfilling maybe a less demanding, more of a supporting role?
So the recruitment is open and they are welcome to and have been welcome to apply. It's not prohibited.
As a part of their professional development, are you encouraging that?
Oh, yes. One of our coordinators is fairly new, and I don't know if they have the 5-year requirement, or and I think we had a 7-year before that.
Does that person have a college degree?
I do not know.
I don't know either.
Well, I think we should look into that and maybe
Okay.
then come back and maybe waive some of these requirements of the years on the job.
I do think the other candidate does, the other coordinator does not.
Do they both not have one?
I would have to check on the other one.
Okay, let's look at that.
And I have a question, and the person that filled the position for 1 year, did they leave because of a better job, a location? Did they give a reason why they left the position?
I would have to defer to Catherine. Do you know?
I do not know.
Yeah, that was before my time. So
Yeah.
How are we ranked as far as this, we set the pay here? How are we in alignment with other municipalities with about, with comparable payroll,
right now, you're probably in the middle of the road.
middle of the pack?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's competitive. I think there's many things to weigh here. Yeah, and I know it's not easy.
And the current staff is 2 payroll persons and 1 coordinator right now,
2 coordinators
Two coordinators.
and our accounting manager and myself.
and yourself, so there's 4.
Well, the accounting manager and myself are sort of one,
The extra, well,
maybe.
how does it impact your other duties?
Actually, I'm pretty much a night person. So when payroll rolls around, they give me the necessary information. I go through it. And then the next morning, I hit them up with my questions.
You-
Yeah, I just want to say one other thing on this. I think we're not approving kind of, I guess the personnel board isn't saying that this person should not have a bachelor's degree or that the standards should necessarily be lower. I think what we're approving here is that like I said before, a bachelor's degree is not required. They're going to be someone who has 20 years of payroll experience and maybe like 3 out of 4 years of getting a bachelor's degree and applies for the job, and they would just be not considered at all because of the current job description. So I trust that this isn't necessarily changing the standards for hiring a person, but rather changing the description to widen that applicant pool, like the city is saying.
That's correct.
So are we currently using ADP or
All in-house.
all in-house? Gotcha.
Have you looked into using a payroll system?
I don't know if this agency has looked into using in other agencies. I have, and where an ADP or Paychex tends to falter is the reporting to CalPERS.
No, you could set that up through paychecks. You could set that up through paychecks to report in CalPERS.
I would have to look into that.
How about we look at some options as an outside source until we can figure out a little bit more clarity, the impact financial, whether or not we're at the right price range to hire someone to come to the city and we can retain them. And that, again, we don't want the staff currently to be overworked and therefore put that strain on what's happening now. So let's entertain a look into some outside payroll companies that could accommodate us until we figure out the best road to go to replacing or filling.
Mhm.
Second that.
Well, can does this board, can this board give direction on things like that? I thought that we're just approving the job post.
We do it all.
Your advisories, right?
Mhm.
Thanks.
We strive for efficiency.
Okay. Excuse me. So we'll go ahead and motion, and then we'll take the vote. So who wants to go ahead and put the motion?
Mhm.
Until further information is brought. I, Vice Chair Bernetta Buckner, move that we table this position for payroll until we get more information brought to the board as in outside sources of payroll and to make sure that the candidates meet our requirements and look at the equivalents.
So we'll go ahead and start the vote to move to table this for further information before approving or not approved. So Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Board Member Front,
No.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy.
Yes.
Okay, majority vote to table. I had a question. Is that something that we would put on the next agenda or?
For something like this, the board did ask for further information. We can come back once we are ready to provide additional details with respect to potentially, the issues related to not being able to fill it, or looking into other issues related to, the position being vacant and some of that other information that they'd want to know, and then bring it back at a later time. We renotice and do all of that. And it
Okay,
could be,
thank you.
within the next month or two, whenever we have the information ready.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next item. Approve the revision retitle of Public Information Officer to Community Engagement Manager, job description. We have Catherine Selkirk from Human Resources presenting.
So this item is to retitle Public Information Officer to Community Engagement Manager, as well as broaden the duties that that person would oversee. Presently, there's no single resource for the city to coordinate all the community engagement needs. And while the Public Information Officer job classification had some of the duties related to public information, it wasn't broad enough to serve the current need. And the city manager and the police chief were discussing the classification for community engagement manager and what they needed. And the proposed spec is what was put together as a result of those conversations. We provided the information to the union and they are in support of the change. We would ask you to consider the retitling.
Is this an officer or a civilian position?
Civilian.
Is there a current person in this role?
There's not.
So this is a new position?
The Public Information Officer is an existing classification. There is not anybody in it, and we would retitle it to Community Engagement Manager.
But it's vacant, both is vacant. Is this a new title?
Correct.
Question, and how long has his office been open? This position's been open or unfulfilled?
I would have to get back to you with that if there is an active, I don't believe there's an active recruitment for this position.
Who has been the PIO for the department, for the police department previously?
I think it's been some time since they've had the civilian position filled.
Also, this is a civilian position.
Correct.
So will there still be an officer as a PIO for the department?
To my understanding, yes, the officer would still be responsible for Richmond Police PIO.
Mhm.
And this position would be more about broadly for the city, community engagement, public information, so more than just, police.
And working in collaboration with the police department?
Correct.
What's the salary range for this position?
That I believe is being negotiated with the union through the class and comp and would need to go to city council before it could be established.
Catch, well, we don't know the salary at this point.
It's not been finalized. It would need to be negotiated, and as well, there's part of our class and comp study that I mentioned earlier that's still ongoing. And then it would need to be adopted by city council.
So I don't see any problem with changing the name change.
Sorry, it's a little bit difficult to hear what the board members are saying. And so if you're having side conversations, I just don't want, I want to make sure that the
Sorry.
recording
Mhm.
and the public get to hear what's being discussed. And so I want to make sure that we're, speaking into the microphone and not having side conversations among each other.
So is this a new position? Are we just approving the title and to post for the position or just the title?
You would be approving the revision to the job spec and the retitling of the previous position, which was called Public Information Officer, would now be called Community Engagement Manager, along with the job specification that was presented with it. That would be what you would be approving.
Is there anything outlined in the description about how this position will work with the current PIO for the department on issues in the community?
I would need to check into it a little further, as I wasn't the analyst that wrote this, but it was developed with the police chief. So I assume that it would be coordinated together because this is her item.
The existing position, as well as the existing duty of collaborating and coordinating with departmental staff, including the PIO officer that's sworn, I think is still part of the essential job duty. So that is still there and hasn't been erased. In terms of how that works specifically with the position, I can't speak to that, but that is part of what they're required to do still.
Yeah, I don't think it outlines directly how they interface with that position, but Pam is correct that that's the intent, that all of the public information would be coordinated together.
It would be nice for it to be outlined for the public. So when incidents occur, when sometimes police are not welcome on the scene, that both the PIO and this position would be able to communicate in the same fashion.
Right, we'll be able to take those comments to the department and have them coordinate with respect to how the procedures are laid out in terms of communicating to the public. I don't think it's necessarily something that's outlined in part of the job description. We try to make sure that it is generally included as part of their essential duties, and I do see that as listed there.
Yeah, I just think with the current state of affairs, I think it is very important for the community to see both civilian personnel and personnel in uniform working together, despite the issue going on in the community.
Understood.
Thank you.
One other question, looking on page 3 of this, of our specifications, there's no required license or certification. But we were asking them to be informed by public relations and marketing and that sort of stuff. So we're gonna base that on their experiences. If they're
That's-
applying for this position.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Do we want to move ahead with the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to motion to approve.
Do I get a second?
Vice Chair Vernetta Buckner approved for the title change.
So that is a second.
And that's a second, I'm sorry, second.
We'll go ahead and vote, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes,
Board Member Front,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy,
No.
majority vote to approve. Moving on to the next item, approve revision to job description for Police Administrative Manager. We have Catherine Selkirk from Human Resources presenting.
So this change to the job spec is to make a minor change in the reporting structure. The chief of police wanted to add the words "or their designee" and in the reporting structure. As well, they wanted to add "performs related work as required," which is consistent with the majority of our job specs. And the last change that they requested that we add to this position are the working conditions and physical demands, because that brings it into consistency with their other department job descriptions.
I have a question. This is an office job, right?
This is a civilian office job.
Yeah. I see that there's requirements for, there's like a lot of mobility requirements, it sounds like, and it sounds like the description is being modified to include those. Is that correct?
That's
Like use of a computer keyboard and verbal communication and being able to sit and stand and twist, I think, and things like that.
That's correct.
So what about the office job requires that kind of mobility, I guess?
Which type of mobility? Sorry.
Like the use of a computer keyboard, like specifically that's in there, I guess with that, my understanding is that there's like reasonable accommodations that could be made for people who are unable to use a computer keyboard or who might be hard of hearing or be unable to that have like difficulty with vision, things like that.
That is correct. So anybody under the ADA could ask for a reasonable accommodation to any of these things, and we would have to engage in the interactive process regarding that.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that listed in the description. Is that not something that needs to be included there?
No, that is typically included as part of the personnel rules and the personnel
Okay.
manual policy requirements that we have. So it is included as the overall global approach that we have. And even if it weren't, that's required by law. So even if it's not written down, we'd be required to do it.
Got it. Thanks.
Um, Vice Chair Vernetta Buckner, has there been an issue why the police chief would add these items to this change?
My understanding is just because this position is vacant and ready to be recruited for, and anytime we go to recruit for a position, we look at the job spec and review with the department to ensure that it's up to date. And I believe these changes came out of that process.
Thank you.
I motion to approve.
Vernetta Buckner, second.
Starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Board Member Front,
Yes.
and Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy.
Yes.
Approved. Okay. Moving on to our last item in new business. Discuss and approve personnel board meeting time change. So we had 2 members join during our pandemic, which was made the meetings during Zoom more feasible. But now that we're moving to in-person, we wanted to propose a time that would be feasible for all board members to attend in person to 6:15 PM.
I motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, starting the vote with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Board Member Front,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Worthy.
Yes.
Okay. Approved.
Thank you.
Time change meeting for the personnel board permanently to 6:15. Okay, there is no unfinished or old business, no review or issuance of subpoenas, no consideration of problems and reports. Pam, did you have anything before we adjourned?
Yes, I just have 2 quick updates for the board. First, you're seeing a group of job specs before you, today to consider and approve as new positions are created and certain positions are being revised and updated for their job specs. We're continuing this process for a lot of our positions. And so as they come, we'll try and bundle them together. But I just wanted to let you know, we may need to call a few special meetings in the future and to coordinate that with you and your schedules for Thursday at 6:15. So potentially, we're keeping our every other Thursdays open, but we'll be contacting you and seeing whether or not you would be available for additional meetings that may be coming up that would need consideration and approval of these updated job specs. So we just wanted to let you know that. Secondly, I know that you've gone through training as a board member for one of the boards or commissions of the city. And I wanted to let you know that we're also working on a personnel board specific training related to, personnel and employment matters and what all of that means. And so since there are new members to the board, I think, it's time that we provide you with, additional training so that you can have all the tools that you need to make your decisions as we move forward. So we look forward to providing that to you. So in the coming weeks and months, we'll let you know when that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing else. We'll call the meeting adjourned. 7:02. Thank you.
All right, thank you.